this isn't stress. These are all mast cell activation syndrome. That is a comment that I got on a clip that I had posted on the video on medical hypnosis. So if you have mast cell activation syndrome, if you have any autoimmune disorder, any inflammatory disorder, I want you to stay tuned because I'm going to break down for you what most doctors learned way back in medical school, but through the process of going through residency and learning to diagnose and prescribe in the various treatments, it became disconnected over time. And unless you were working with someone who specializes in autoimmune, which you might be, and they understand the overall system of how this gets triggered from just living life, then you probably haven't been taught this. My name's Penny. I'm a board-certified hypnotist, but I've spent 25 years in healthcare, 15 of that in anesthesia. And as I mentioned in the medical hypnosis video, the foundations of anesthesia are intimately understanding how the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system work, and how all the connections in the brain work, and all the different systems that they impact and the way that it impacts. Why is that? Because when a person undergoes surgery, they go under an immense amount of stress. And anesthesia not only has to keep someone asleep, we have to keep you alive and wake you up. So it is a delicate balance. You know, people laugh and joke and say anesthesia's sitting at the head of the table. They're not doing anything. We're doing a great deal of mental work, even if we're not doing physical work. So all of this is at the foundation of managing someone under anesthesia when they're going under a tremendous amount of stress. And I wrote a book, Breaking the Fibro Code. I'll put the link. You can go get it on Amazon and read it. I have an updated version, but it's not available yet. Let's talk a little bit about this. So this person says, this isn't stress. This is all mast cell activation syndrome, but yet it can be aggravated by stress. The first thing we want to do is we want to consider the sources of stress. And I want to teach you how to take control of your body's physiology. And I will give you the science behind it. It's science. It's almost 2 decades old at this point. And it's a shame that the medical community has not embraced it more, because I will tell you, the things I'm about to share with you was never taught in my nursing or anesthesia training. I learned about it in my hypnosis training in 2013, and my mind was blown. The connections are so obvious and right in front of us, but if we teach someone how to master their mind, we cannot profit off of them. People think stress and they think extreme life event, which those things happen. But let's break this down. We have mental stress. We have emotional stress. We have physical stress. We have environmental. And we have spiritual. And by spiritual, I don't mean religious, but we're going to hit on all of these. Let's go with physical and environmental first. Those are going to be the fastest. Physical stress, illness, having an injury or wound, bright lights. I'm going to go so far as to put blue light, because blue light is only supposed to be observed in the noontime hours. Our skincare products, our shampoos, our cleaners, VOCs, which come from paint, carpets, noise pollution, and our diet. Now, our diet is huge. Most people don't realize this. Eating too many carbohydrates in a day actually creates stress on your system. It creates metabolic stress. Lack of exercise or lack of movement, dehydration. This is a short list. You can put nutrient deficiencies, ultra-processed foods. If someone has the MTHFR gene and you're eating processed flours, no bueno, not good. Okay, so our environment, blue light can go to our environment, perfumes, chemicals, our work environment, our physical environment. Does your home ventilate well, right? So your home, this goes back to VOCs, your carpets, right? We can be in a place where we're breathing these things in, but also our home. Is there clutter? Clutter or having too much stuff is directly linked to anxiety. What noise are you around? What lights are you around? Do you live near chemical plants? Water pollution. Some of these things we control, some we can't. Now, spiritual is pretty easy. Spiritual means living according to what feels true for you. And I don't mean beliefs. I mean what your heart pulls you to do. And not being who somebody expects you to be, but to be who you actually are. Okay. So now we come back to mental and emotional stressors. Mental stressors, we have alarm clocks. We have deadlines. We have beliefs that, and this goes back to the spiritual, we have beliefs that the only way we can be successful is to go to college. College can be a mental stressor. Life changes. Kids grow up, leave the home. A child is born. Maybe a child has a disability. Maybe a parent is aging. So family dynamics. Okay. What are the stories and beliefs that we carry around these things? In American society, we are sicker. People assume we have the greatest health care in the world, and we don't. We have sick care. People in America are so darn sick because of stress, and our stress is a self-imposed prison. And it's because we've been conditioned to believe that we have to be productive. Inflation is a mental stress. Financial stress. How are you going to pay for childcare? Right? The things that we have normalized in American society are not normal at all. Now, are these things dangerous to us? No, but our nervous system can't tell the difference. The moment we think, oh my God, I have to get this done, fight or flight kicks into gear. I'm going to connect all this to MCAS, POTS, autoimmune, fibromyalgia, scleroderma, lupus, SLE. I'm going to connect all the dots in just a minute. So the emotional stress. When we're in the moment and things are happening, we don't address our feelings, and those things get pushed down in the moment. But here's the thing. Did your parents face financial hardship? Were they always working to get by? Were your parents stressed? Were you told to be seen, not heard? You say, oh, well, that kid should be seen, not heard. True. But if there was something that was important to you as a child and you weren't allowed to express it, what happens to those feelings? Okay. The constant push to get straight A's. Maybe somebody in the family was alcoholic. 1 out of 4 girls and 1 out of 6 boys is somehow sexually exploited. 1 out of 5 women has an attempted or completed rape. 1 out of 8 women has experienced a completed rape, meaning there was penetration. Those are huge statistics. Huge statistics. What if you didn't fit in school? What if you felt, out of place? Didn't belong? All of this is stored in the subconscious mind. The mind doesn't forget. Instead, what it does is it creates patterns, and your brain looks for ways to avoid those situations, or it looks for ways to help you to cope so they don't impact you negatively. You could be in a current relationship with somebody who's a yeller, narcissist. This is some of my clients have had parents who were ADHD, and I was only diagnosed 2 years ago. I had no clue, but I've had clients who had 2 parents who had ADHD, and the complete lack of a predictable routine as a child, their parents provided for them, but the routine was unpredictable. That by itself created trauma that required therapy, EMDR, and then their therapist sent them to me because there was something the EMDR couldn't get at, and it rested in those nervous system imprints from the unpredictability before they were forming solid memories yet. Yes, that can happen. This is the tip of the iceberg of sources of things that stress us. And I hear you're going, but this is life. I can't change this. There's a lot of it that you can change, but I'm going to teach you that biological hack. And it's not a hack. It's actually how to take control of your physiology. Just stick with me. And if you are a hypnotist and you are watching this, just leave a comment, stick around, and I'm going to tell you how to integrate this into your hypnosis. You've probably already learned how to do it, but with this explanation, you're really going to be able to help your clients understand the importance of taking back control of their life. Pardon me in my little brain here, my little brain. The hypothalamus is in the brain, and it's a part of what used to be called the limbic system. Limbic system is an old term. It's not a system. It's just somewhat interconnected structures. The hypothalamus is the first part of the HPA axis. Hypothalamus pituitary. Anytime we experience an emotion, fear, anger, joy, all of these things, signals get sent to the hypothalamus, and it tells the hypothalamus, ramp us up, turn us down, ramp us up, turn us down. Okay. The hypothalamus signals the pituitary gland. When we have a singular stressful event, let's say life is great, we just really have a laid back life, or we have a car accident. In the moment of that car accident, the hypothalamus is going to tell the pituitary gland to release CRH, which is corticotropin releasing factor. That goes to your adrenal glands. It says release cortisol, okay? But under chronic stress, this just gets activated over and over. In the short term, a singular stress, corticotropin releasing factor, and the norepinephrine that gets released in the brain and in the sympathetic nervous system, those things serve to heighten our senses, our awareness. They manipulate our blood flow. Go watch the video on medical hypnosis. And it tells our body, oh, we might need to clot our blood because we might be about to get injured and bleed. We might need to clot our blood. And it helps it to be prepared for a potential break in the skin and the need to fight infection. But when you have chronic activation, all of that corticotropin releasing hormone is stimulating all of this cortisol, that instead what happens is when it's chronic, we get inflammation. Now, I need you to understand, because this is happening in the brain does not mean it's in your head. Let me adjust the lights. Because it's happening in your brain does not mean that it's in your head. You're not making it up. Chemical stressors can activate at the cellular level. It can activate stress at the cellular level. And the response of the cells at the cellular level can feed back and tell the hypothalamus, something's not right. Something's not working right here. Something's not moving the way that it should be. When we have increased inflammation, we can get into a positive feedback loop. When we have increased levels of inflammation, we can also have increased levels of what's called substance P. Substance P lets the system know there's something wrong. Something's not working well. There is some threat to our system. All the different autoimmune diseases, after a period of prolonged stress, and people say, oh, it's cellular stress, it's oxidative stress. Yes, yes. It starts here. It starts here. A single set of cells, a single organ can be impacted, but there is feedback. We have feedback loops, and they can be different for different systems. So I'm having to be very general here. This is not an autoimmune physiology class. But at the end of the day, what will happen is under this chronic inflammation and stress, our body, be it the nervous system, our gut, our vasculature, our muscles, our fascia, the tissue that's being impacted the most goes, wait a minute, I'm having difficulty sustaining this. And then we can get what are called epigenetic changes. We use the symbol for change there. Now, epigenetic changes are not the same thing as the KIT gene that is seen with MCAS. Somewhere between 10 and 20%. The standard accepted number is 10%, but now they're finding that maybe closer to 15 to 18% of MCAS cases have the KIT gene. And it's a gene mutation. It's not the KIT gene. It is a gene mutation. There's one good side to the gene mutation, and that is it is not genetic, meaning that you can't pass it to your children. It happens in your body. It doesn't get passed to your children, and that's because our eggs skip a generation, and that's a story for another day. But these epigenetic changes mean that we go into a state of what's called hypomethylation on certain genes. And with mast cell syndrome, what has happened is that due to the hypomethylation, the mast cells think that normal, everyday things are a threat to your very survival. It comes to think that the foods you eat are a threat to survival. It comes to think that a fragrance that you smell is a threat to survival. It comes to think that pressure on your arm is a threat to survival. It comes to think the alarm going off is a threat to survival. That's what's happening with mast cell activation syndrome. The way to shut this off is you have to get out of fight or flight, and you have to get into your vagal tone. Now, is that going to completely reverse it or cure it? Once epigenetic changes happen, those epigenetic changes can be reversed. And I'm going to share with you the science behind which epigenetic changes I'm talking about. You have the most amount of influence over your body. You have more influence over how you feel than any medication that any doctor could give you. And your choice to influence that will help the medications and treatments that your doctor is giving you be more effective. Who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want that? So when I say that, I don't mean this is your fault. What I'm showing you is how the sick care system in the United States has made people victims of their bodies instead of empowering them and showing them how to do things. Because we have created a society where the goal is to have people who show up to work and can be productive and can get things done. That's basically what it is. I don't know if you know this. I don't like their healthcare system because I think that I know too many people personally who have become friends of mine online, that their families wait insane periods of time for basic testing that could prevent disability and disease progression, that here in the US you would get access to it very quickly. But in Canada and in the EU, they do something that I wish we did here. When someone starts to have symptoms of issues like this, before it becomes a progressed disease, you can actually take disability time to basically get things right in your body and in your life to nip all this in the bud. It's a paid benefit. We have the brain here, and we have the HPA axis. And this is going to your little adrenal glands that sit on top of your kidneys. And this is cortisol. And then you have your thalamus and brainstem, which are going to drive the nerves to your heart, speed up your blood pressure, speed up your heart rate, increase your blood pressure, and then these nerves go everywhere to your blood vessels all over your body. The vagus nerve is not multiple nerves the way that the sympathetic nervous system is. It's one nerve, and it is a cranial nerve. And as I mentioned in the medical hypnosis video, it's tied to your pupillary dilation, your ability to tear, your ability to salivate, your gut function, your sexual functions. And I want you to think about this. If someone was fighting for survival, would it be smart for the body to create an environment where that individual could get pregnant? That blood flow is needed to survive. It can't spare it to sustain a baby growing in the womb. If we are fighting for our life, is it smart to have blood going to our gut to digest food? No, because we're fighting for our life. The problem is, with chronic stress, our body sees all of these things as not important, which is why I made the other video. But you can manipulate the vagus nerve, because you see, you have these nerves going to the heart. I'm going to get rid of this for just a minute. You have these nerves going to the heart, but you also have this vagus nerve that goes to the heart. It goes to the lungs. Pardon my poor picture here. Now, here's the thing. We have receptors in our carotid arteries. We have receptors in our heart. And we have receptors in our lungs. These receptors provide feedback to the brain, telling the brain stem what to do with blood pressure, what to do with heart rate. So when you take a normal, natural, deep diaphragmatic breath, you're telling the lungs, oh, we got a lot of air coming in here. The lungs tell the brain, slow down the heart. We've got a chest full of air. Slow down the heartbeat so it has time to fill up with blood. So the brainstem and the vagus nerve are coming down here, and your brainstem decreases stimulation because the vagus nerve is sending a signal for the heart to slow down. And that vagus nerve becomes dominant. Now, when the vagus nerve becomes dominant, it shuts down inflammation. So it's called a vagal break. Vagal break is what they call it now. This is not what they called it back in the 70s. But everybody's got to change a name and make a name for themselves for something. They now call it the vagal break. When your brain is in rest and relaxation mode, there's no reason for the body to be in inflammation. When your body is in parasympathetic, when it's in rest and relaxation, when it's in vagal tone, when you apply the vagal break, that is where your body heals. If you cannot get out of the stress response, your body cannot heal. See, what people don't understand is that the symptoms they're experiencing, Mast Cell Activation Syndrome, fibromyalgia, Crohn's, systemic lupus erythematosus, all of these things that are autoimmune, inflammation-based, what they don't understand is that is a symptom that they're stuck in fight or flight. That is a symptom that they're living in fight or flight. Those things are, at their truest core, those things are not diseases. They started out in the very beginnings. That was the body attempting to cope with stress. And over time, the more it attempted to cope with stress, those positive feedback loops, the elevated substance P, the elevated cytokines in the body, tumor necrosis, alpha leukotrienes, all these things, those things get elevated and they're telling the brain there's something wrong here. There's something wrong here. You have to save us. And the brain doesn't know necessarily what it is. Those things started out as an adaptive mechanism to deal with the stress. But with all the positive feedback over time, they become symptoms and syndromes and what we call disease. It's a disruption, it is a distortion of our body's way of handling stress. All of these things are stress run amok: diabetes type 2, hypertension. Now, if you have MTHFR, because people are going to say, oh my God, I have MTHFR. That's not what this is. If you have MTHFR and you're taking folic acid, you're taking vitamins that aren't methylated, what are you doing? You're creating stress in the body. It's a metabolic stress, a type of a metabolic stress. It's a methylation stress, but it is a stress just the same. It is something that you can influence. So if you're a hypnotist, you are going to want to take what I'm about to teach you, and you're going to teach them this first. Then you are going to guide them into deep hypnosis, and you are going to give them an anchor. You should know how to create a hypnotic anchor. I'm not going to teach you how to do that here. Maybe in another video. You are going to create a hypnotic anchor to them using the breath and experiencing that deep relaxation in hypnosis so that they can do this much more quickly. Now, if you're not a hypnotist, you do not need to know hypnosis to do this, but it's going to take you a little bit longer. So, the vagal break, you're going to breathe in for a count of 5, hold it for a count of 7, and exhale for a count of 8. When you breathe in, you're not doing this. You're breathing into your belly. This is going to give you about 5 breaths a minute. Now, when you're practicing this at home, pinch your thumb and finger together when you inhale and hold. Let your fingers go when you exhale. And if you're thinking this is bullshit, I'm clicking off, I'm bringing the science. Stay with me. I have a study. It's 2 decades old. It is unequivocal what this will do for you. It's not in question what this will do with you. Stay with me. So, for a couple of weeks, I want you to set timers on your phone. And in the morning for 5 minutes, 25 breaths. Anybody can do that. I want you to do that slow, steady breath in, hold, and exhale. You're not taking an extremely large breath. You're just taking a deep breath. Believe it or not, when you're not under stress, this is how you would breathe every day. Because this is how we would breathe in our rest and relaxation response, not the hold part. I'm going to get to that in just a minute. But this is to get you started, okay? So for 2 weeks, 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening. Then I want you to set a little timer on your phone every hour for 1 minute, once an hour, 5 breaths. That's what I want you to do. Once you have started to condition your brain that this is connected to the response of breathing, then I want you to go into maintenance mode. Using that same thumb and finger, I want you to breathe in for 5, exhale for 8. And that's going to be about 6 to 7 breaths a minute max. Pinch your finger when you inhale, release when you exhale. This is normal, natural, physiologic breathing. People go, oh, I do breath work. I do Wim Hof. I do all these things. Breath work, because it causes such a drastic and rapid change in the chemical state in your cerebral spinal fluid, that can actually trigger your fight or flight response. And that is the last thing that you want. And if you teach yourself to do this, you could be going into a situation you normally find stressful and just have your hand in your pocket or in your lap if you're sitting, and you can activate your relaxation response. Who would agree that being stuck at a red light in traffic does not mean you're in danger of your life? We can all agree for that. Wouldn't it be helpful if your brain, your very primitive, prehistoric brain that doesn't know the difference between the stress of being stuck in traffic at the red light and the stress of being chased by a lion on the Serengeti, that you might actually die? Wouldn't it be helpful if your brain knew the difference? When you're sitting in traffic at the red light, do this, and you're telling your brain, no, it's a red light. We can relax. I am safe. When you breathe like this, you are telling your brain you are safe. Whether you believe you are stressed or not, your brain thinks you're in danger. Your brain thinks that your life is in danger. Now, for the science, Dusick and others did a study. They took people brand new to diaphragmatic breathing. Brand new. They drew DNA samples. They did their DNA profiles, and they did diaphragmatic breathing. They had them practice this for 8 weeks. 8 weeks. They drew another sample of blood. In that 8 weeks, the study group flipped 1,500. It was actually more than that. I have the citation in my book, Breaking the Fibro Code. The people who were new to doing this flipped 1,500 epigenetic switches. You want to know what switches that they flipped off? And it's really not switches. The DNA adds methyl groups back on. They were able to reverse the changes for genes that would result in the release of tumor necrosis alpha, which is inflammatory and is associated with metastasis of tumors, along with multiple factors that are associated with autoimmune diseases. I have 25 pages here and about 75 references to studies on how that changes things. In people who knew how to do diaphragmatic breathing, but maybe they didn't do it regularly, they saw 2,200 changes from baseline at the beginning of 8 weeks of a consistent practice to the end. That is the science. And when it comes to hypnosis and just the importance of being in a place where you have decreased anxiety and stress, there was a study. It's not Valentine. Valentine was a study on anxiety. In 2019, they looked at women who had breast cancer. And these were newly diagnosed breast cancer. And they drew blood work at the beginning of their chemotherapy. And they looked at 2 specific markers. One was tumor necrosis factor alpha, and the other was granulocyte colony stimulating factor. What those two things do, they believe that they are secreted to help cancer and tumors survive. So typically, if you do nothing, so the control group, if you do nothing, we're doing nothing here, you start chemo, mid chemo, end chemo. Okay. For the control group, when they drew their blood work, their levels started here and they went up. The more chemo they got, the more these levels went up. And these factors are associated with tumor metastasis. In the hypnosis group, what they were going for was a decrease in anxiety and an overall quality of life, which they achieved. But in this group, what they found was that these levels stayed stable. They didn't go down, but they stayed stable. Does this mean that hypnosis can prevent tumor metastasis? No. They were working on doing a much bigger study. There are no results as of yet that I'm aware of that have been published to show what it is about hypnosis that influences this. But hypnosis causes activation of the relaxation response. When a person is in a hypnotic state, you experience activation of the relaxation response, which is the same thing that the breath does. And in that study of 1,500 people using the breath were able to flip the epigenetic change that causes the production of tumor necrosis factor alpha. So you might say, that's not stress. It's mast cell activation syndrome. I have shared with you today a way that you can gain control and influence over your body's physiology to give yourself the opportunity to heal. Now, in addition to the breath, hypnosis can help you with eating habits. Hypnosis can help you with sleep. That's one of the things that was not on the physical stressors list, disordered sleep. Hypnosis can help you with moving your body more. Hypnosis can help you with comfort. There are no studies because it's difficult to gather people for a randomized trial like this, a randomized controlled trial. But going back to the early 1900s, I mean, I'm talking the 1920s, there are case reports where physicians were writing up how they used hypnosis and reversed asthma. So anything that is impacted by stress and inflammation, hypnosis can help. And any habits that you might have, that if you change those habits, it would also decrease your stress so that your body has a chance to take care of itself. Hypnosis can help with those. I do hope you stayed to the end of this video. Hypnosis does not treat or cure any disease. It is meant to help you to put yourself into a state where your body do what it already knows how to do, and that is to heal, repair, renew, and rejuvenate itself. If you're a healthcare provider and you're interested in learning more about becoming a hypnotist, I will have the link below. The program is by application only. So be sure to take a look at that. I do a limited number of trainings per year so that we have quality, not quantity. Thanks so much.